Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday free live question and answer class, where I take your questions about American accent training, pronunciation in American English, intonation, everything related to improving your American accent. And if you're new to class, welcome. You can type your questions in the chat at any time, and I periodically review those and answer the questions. So people often ask about words that they have difficulty pronouncing, elements of accent, pronunciation, intonation, things like that. So you'll see as we go on. Today we'll be talking about what are called homophones. That is words that have the same pronunciation, but different spelling and different meaning. And the reason I'm talking about this is that people are often asking me about how to pronounce these words, oftentimes because when they see two words that have different spelling, they think they should have different pronunciation. And many times in English, that's true. In the case of these words, the pronunciation will be exactly the same for both words. I will also be directing you to some resources to get more information about these types of words and teaching you how to know which words have the same pronunciation and which have different. In addition to our weekly free live classes, Speech Modification has online courses and many free resources on our website, speechmodification.com. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, I suggest that you do that because then you'll see that when I have new videos, new uploads, and when I have live classes. And you can choose how YouTube notifies you of that. If you subscribe and you click on the notifications bell, they'll send you a little reminder or a little alert that Speech Modification is live. Or if you just subscribe, sometimes my videos will show up on your home page and you'll see when I have new things. It's really helpful for me and my channel if you subscribe because it lets YouTube know that people want to see these free live classes. I also teach here in the Seattle area, and I have a new round of classes coming up in Bellevue on Wednesday nights in June. And you can come to the first class there in June on Wednesday night, June 5th, for free and check it out. And then after that, if you'd like to join the class, it's a 4-week class and it's pretty inexpensive and you'll learn a lot about the fundamentals for American accent training. So I hope you can come for that. One more announcement and then we'll get into the content for today's class. I also have a new Facebook group, which is a learning group. So I have a Facebook page and many of you are aware of that and you see my posts on Facebook. But the group is different because it's a teaching and learning group. So you can join and you can go through lessons, free lessons and units that have videos and downloads, and you can work on some of your accent questions. You can be part of discussion there with other people who are learning the American accent. So I suggest checking that out, and I'm going to put the link for that here in the chat comments for you, so you can check that out after class if you're interested. Okay, so let's get to our topic today, which is homophones. And let's just look at some examples to start. And then we'll talk about what's going on with these words and how to know how to find more words, and I'll take your questions. Yes, please feel free. Hi, nice to see you. There was a question about Facebook. Go ahead and if you click on that link, you'll find Speech Modification on Facebook. That's our group. You can also find the Speech Modification page just by going on Facebook and typing in Speech Modification, and you'll see our page with our resources. So here's some words that you might think should be pronounced differently because of the way they're spelled. So for example, the words sun and sun, they have different spelling. But in these two words, the vowel sounds are the same. So I like to use the IPA symbols for showing pronunciation. Those are the symbols that you'll see in an online dictionary or a regular dictionary. And the ones that I use are called IPA. And the dictionary I use is called the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. And I'll show you that later. But the idea of the IPA is that when I write this word or these sounds, sun, I can write the sounds. So the first sound is s, the second sound is and the last sound is n. And so both of these letters, both of these spellings represent the sounds sun. And so the errors that I'll hear sometimes is maybe you see an O and you think that this sun should sound a little more like son instead of sun, but it should be the same. Another example, with the same vowels, if I make these sounds, w, and n, those are my symbols. It sounds like w, n. You can hear the word one. One. I can see those sounds. And so when I say the word one, you might be thinking of this word, one, or you might be thinking of this word, one. Probably because I wrote the symbols with the W, you were thinking of this one. We often look at this word one and we don't remember or think that it has the W sound for the first sound because we have the vowel there. In this case, again, both vowel letters say the sound that's called vowel schwa. And you can find more information about spelling, the different sounds that letter O and letter U can say in the last few classes we did. We were focusing on that, as well as on my vowels playlist. You can find specific information about any vowels. But these are just some simple words that you probably are saying correctly, but you may not have thought about the sounds in the word and how they're actually pronounced. We're going to take a look at more words like this where the sounds are the same and talk about some of the errors you might have on those words. But first I want to check in. I see that there's been some questions, so I'm going to read those and get back to you on those answers. Yes, so Robbie pointed out that I asked a lot of questions about homophones and can I answer those questions? So I did let people know on Facebook and on the community page on YouTube some questions leading up to today's class. And on the community page on YouTube, each time I asked a question, I did add a comment with the answer, but let's take a look at those. So here's how I'm going to do that. That's great. Thank you for pointing that out, Robbie. So if you go to my YouTube channel, another new feature that you might like is the community page on YouTube. So my subscribers can go, and non-subscribers can go to YouTube, can go to speech modification. So let's look at my page. And you can see across the top that there's home, videos, playlists, and there's a new one called community. And maybe you haven't been there yet. I know some of you have. Okay, so they're not showing here on the app. You have to be on your mobile phone or on the desktop. But on the community page, I've been putting on questions, polls, resources, and links to videos for you. So I'll just go there now and read some of the questions that we've done this week and answer them for you because those are really helpful. So I know one of them off the top of my head, and this is the same question I asked on Facebook, which is whether or not the words there, I'll have to write them out, these words have the same pronunciation. So this is the word there, as in I'm going over there, or have you been there? This is the word there, as in it's their favorite food. And then this is the word there, as in they are. So they're going, they're having lunch. And you may have noticed as I was saying these words there, and there, the pronunciation was the same for all of them. So the symbols for that are the sound. Then you can hear that there's an a. This combination of letters sounds like air, like the word air, which in the symbols we represent with an A and an R sound. And so especially this word there, people, I will often hear them say it more like they are, just shortened and condensed there, they are. And really, you want to think about removing that vowel sound and just doing an A sound here and an sound here. And that's often because people are less comfortable using contractions in American English, and they are just thinking they are instead of there. And also in British English, they do more of a they do more two syllables and not just the three sounds there. So that was one of the questions today. There, and there all have the same pronunciation. So thank you for bringing that up. And let me look at some of my other questions from today and answer those for you. So we also were talking about word pairs that are the same, and we're going to be talking about all of those word pairs today. One of the examples in the class was another example of a word pair that are the same were some and some, and those have the same vowel sound, the sound, like we had in the word sun, but now the M sound instead. And then another question was flower and flower. And you'll notice with these that you may have more difficulty pronouncing one word rather than the other. And these, again, are the same. Both are the same pronunciation. The sounds are the f sound, the L sound, the ow vowel, which is basically a diphthong, two vowels, ow, and then the sound. And actually, because we have ow and together, we have a little bit of a hidden w sound there. Our. So when I move from ow to my lips form kind of a W. So for many people, this word is easier to pronounce because the W helps us see that we have flow and flower. And this one is harder to pronounce because we represent the same sounds in a different way. So if you know that you're pronouncing one of them correctly and you know that they're the same, then you can think about the spelling for the one that helps you pronounce it better. So I brought some flowers and some flour into the kitchen. Very good. Let's see. Other questions from you? Not yet. So we'll come back to those. So yes, the rest of the poll questions, you can go to that community page and you can, for each question, if you had a question about it, I give you an explanation after the question, and I also give you a link to see some videos to help you to answer those questions. So, and another resource I'd like to share is on my website, speechmodification.com. I've talked about this topic before, and I have some additional videos. So I have some videos about specific words like there, and there, or here and here. And I also have on the website, if you go to my free practice, so here we are on speechmodification.com, and you can go to the search box, and I'm just going to type in homophones. I could also type in here, or there, one of my words, and I can see where my lesson is for homophones. So it's talking about different spelling, same pronunciation. And there you can see an example of one of the YouTube videos that I have and a list of a lot of common homophones. So you can find many lists on the internet for homophones, but these are some of the ones of the most frequently used words that you might be surprised to see have the same pronunciation. So another question we have, another comment was our and our. So good observation. Kurt is telling us that our, like 1 hour or an hour of the day, and our, those are also homophones, same pronunciation. So in this case, we don't say the H sound in our. We start with that same ow vowel. And just like flower, we have the w sound and then the sound, our. Very good. And an error that sometimes people have is they will say an H on either of these words. They might say more like hour for either of the words, and that's incorrect. You just want the vowel and the sound, hour. Another question was, does the word bit, does it have a homophone? So bit. Bit is doesn't have a homophone, but it's an example of a word that this word can have more than one meaning. So it can be the past tense of bite, like I was bit, the dog bit the child. And it can also mean a small amount, like I just like a little bit of coffee, please. So that's a different, because the spelling is the same, even though there's two meanings, this is two different words, but with different meanings, but not different spelling. So homophones are words that have different spelling and different meaning, but the same pronunciation. This has the same pronunciation, same spelling, different meanings. It's really tricky with American English that we reuse the same spelling and the same words for multiple meanings, and that we have the same sounds and the same sounding words with different spellings. That it's just a function of repetition of words in English and how challenging spelling is. And we have been, if you've been in class the last few weeks, looking at spelling versus pronunciation. And that's really something that's very useful to understand the symbols for the sounds, because then you can know for sure how something is pronounced. So, for example, the example we used with sun, the spelling of that schwa vowel, the sound, was letter O or letter U. But I can look up a word in the dictionary and I can see the symbol for the sound and know that those two are the same. And I actually do this myself when I'm looking up certain words, because I'm trying to be very careful to make sure I'm giving people correct advice about how to pronounce things in English. And so I'll use those symbols when I look in the dictionary to determine the words. Another question that we talked about earlier this week was the words do and these three words. And again, these three words are all pronounced the same. And the pronunciation of these words is the D sound, that's obvious. And then the vowel sound is oo. So this symbol represents the oo sound, which we often think of as being spelled with OO. But you can see in all three of these words, none of them have the spelling of OO. So spelling is not reliable. But we say do, like I do like it. Do, like there's dew on the grass in the morning. And do, like my library books are due. I will sometimes hear people pronounce this one more as do, but that's the British pronunciation. And in American English, we don't say that little y sound. We don't say do, we say do. The nice thing about the Oxford Learner's Dictionary is that it'll show you the British and the American English pronunciation. So if we look that up, we can see for the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, I'm going to type in the word do, the one that D-U-E, and it'll show me the symbols. And here we have British, do, there's the little J sound that says yeah, and we have American English, do. I can also listen to the sound, to the pronunciation of the two. I'll turn it up so you can hear it better. So when I listen to American English, I hear
do.
And when I listen to British English, I hear
do.
You can hear that that's different. And so if you were taught English somewhere other than the US, you may have learned British pronunciation for some words. And if I say do in American English when I'm speaking, people will understand me. That's not really an issue. But to know for yourself what the difference is between British and American English. That can be very helpful. And so, for example, this was the word do, D-U-E. If I put in the word do, D-O, I can then compare. I can remember the symbols were the D and the U. If I put in just D-O, I can see there's my same symbols, do and do. Although in this case, the British don't say do when they're talking about the verb do. They say do just like American English. So some of you may have thought that some of those words were different because in some cases you're using British pronunciation, and in some cases you're using American. And in general, you want to try to be consistent across your pronunciation so that you don't sound like you have an American accent with a few words in British. Although it doesn't really matter in terms of specific words as long as you're pronouncing it in a way that can be understood. We have some great other suggestions here. Everybody is correct. So we have, Kurt has told us about two, and two. Another example of homophones. So this is the number, this is the preposition, and this means also. One difference here is that of these three, only one of them will sometimes be reduced. So if I talk about 2 days from now, I'm going to use the proper pronunciation of t, and there's our oo again. And here in this case, it is spelled with oo in one of the cases. So two. And if I say I'm going to go to, I'll also use this correct pronunciation of oo. But you might have noticed when I said I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to. For this word to, it's my clear vowel oo. But when I said I'm going to go, I didn't say I'm going to go. I actually changed that vowel and I said a reduced vowel, schwa, and it sounds like ta. I'm going to go. So in many cases, when we're using to, I'm going to go to the store, we use this reduced t sound, and I only do that for the preposition or for when it's in an infinitive phrase. So when it's the to word, it can get reduced to ta, and when it's to the number or to like also, then it doesn't get reduced. So that's one way you can tell which to that people are using. And you also may want to try to adopt that t sound because it helps you sound more fluent when speaking American English. And you can hear how it sounds more choppy if I say, I'm going to go to the store instead of I'm going to go to the store. So that's something that we talk about in our Real Talk playlist and our Real Talk courses, where we look at the written words and we talk about how pronunciation changes to help with fluency and in connected speech. So check those out. My online courses all have a free 2-week trial, and they're a low subscription price. So you can go and try out the course, see if that online learning is useful for you. And of course, I have many, many free resources as well on here on the YouTube channel and on speechmodification.com. So you can search under Real Talk and you can find the playlist and you can find lessons on my website that will help you with that. And again, I'll mention again that those types of lessons are being added now to my Facebook group where you can go through and do that learning as part of the group. And so I hope that you'll be a part of that too. I have another good example of homophones, which is pair, pair, and pair. And so the sounds in these words are the p, the a, and the pair. So this is pair to cut something up, pair as in two people, and pear the fruit. So the pair of us are going to pair some pears. Very good. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through a lot more homophones because I'll be making additional videos for these to help clarify the most common ones, but I'd like to make sure that you have the resources on my website. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for you. which is this resource has a list for you as well as a video, and it gives you the link for the online dictionary that I was demonstrating so that you can learn to look up additional words if you have a question about whether they're homophones. And if you have a question now, you may put that in the chat. I'll be happy to answer it. Or if you're watching this later as a replay or watching any of my videos, you can always put questions in the comments for the videos. And I do go through and check those and give people links to resources and answer their questions for them. We like to hear from you about what questions you have because it helps me make the videos that are most useful for you as you're learning and working on your American accent. So one of the videos I have for homophones, it's on that lesson on the website, and I also include the direct link to this video. And this is about the words here and there, and there. So we talked about that a little bit in today's class. Next week, we'll continue talking about sounds and spelling, and we'll look at additional topics that help you have the correct pronunciation even when the spelling doesn't help you. Many times the spelling of a word actually creates a mispronunciation rather than helping you pronounce a word correctly. And so starting to be able to listen to what the sounds in the words are as opposed to looking at what the letters are can be very helpful. Learning some of the symbols for the different sounds can be helpful as well. So far, we've mostly been talking about words with vowel differences. And I'd just like to point out a few words where it's actually the consonants that make different spelling. So at the very beginning, I talked about, or I guess it was on my YouTube, my Facebook broadcast, so not on this broadcast. So one example, the words right, and right have the R sound, the I sound, and the T sound. Neither of them is really spelled in a straightforward way. This has the R sound spelled as WR and the T sound spelled as TE. And this has the simple spelling for the R sound, but it has GHT for the T sound. Now you could say that IGH is the vowel sound, and I and E make the vowel sound here. But again, both of them have the same pronunciation, and you might have been trying to make them different from one another because they look different and they're spelled differently. Another example with consonants, the words scent, like the scent of the flower. So there's our flower we were talking about before. Sent, like I sent her some flowers. And cent, like 1 cent, 1 penny. So we see that the S sound in scent can be spelled with SC, with S, or with just C. So again, that's quite confusing until you know these words and what they mean. And it can be confusing to know which one you need to use in context too. So that's another reason that the dictionary is helpful, is I can look them up and make sure that I'm using the spelling with the correct meaning, even though all of them have the same sounds in all of these words. One more example of spelling differences would be the words days and days. Both of these words have the same pronunciation. The first sound is D, second sound is A, and the last sound is Z. And the reason I point this one out is that for many people, they may have a mispronunciation on this word days, where they might say it more as an S sound, like days. But in this case, and in many cases in English, the letter S will say the sound Z. And you can check in the online dictionary and you'll see a Z symbol for words that have the Z sound, and you'll see an S symbol for words that have the S sound. And I like this one because if I had a habit of saying this word more as days, if I write it out like this, days, I'm much more likely to remember and be able to pronounce that Z sound correctly. And as you can see, they both have the same pronunciation. So that's a technique I use quite a bit in correcting error patterns in English, helping with pronunciation, and helping overcome the fact that spelling is very misleading in English. I could also write it like this, days. Anything that's going to help me notice and trigger that I need to be doing the Z sound rather than the S sound there. So again, we're probably not using the word days very much. Hopefully you're not in a daze too often, but you are using the word days, many times in a day. You might be saying that, and you want to be able to correct your Z sound in that. Again, this topic is, even though we're talking about words that have the same pronunciation, it leads us to learning about error patterns we might have, learning about how that spelling might not be helping us, but rather hurting us in terms of pronunciation. And again, learning the sounds and thinking about the sounds in words. Many of these words you're saying correctly, but you might have had some questions or some doubts about how you're pronouncing them because of the two different spellings for the words. So thank you so much for being a part of class today. If anyone has any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer those now. Or if you're watching after the broadcast is finished, as I said, please feel free to ask questions there. We'll meet again next Friday at the same time, 12 o'clock, and we'll be talking about sounds and spelling, maybe a little bit more about homophones. I hope you can join me for that. And if you're here in the Seattle area, I hope you can join me in Bellevue in June on Wednesday nights for our American Accent Fundamentals class. That'll be a 4-week class. If you're not here in the local area, I know many of you are all around the world. I do suggest checking out my website, speechmodification.com, for the free resources there and for my online courses. So my online courses are similar videos, actually different from this kind of class, where the videos are very short and they walk you through one step at a time how to improve your pronunciation and how to work on your American accent. The best starting course is our 6-week course because it walks you through all of those fundamentals. It handles a lot of the difficult sounds like the R and the TH sound, vowel sounds, and it also teaches you the steps to practice to change your speech. So some of these concepts are pretty easy to get when you're just looking at individual words, but hard to do when you're talking in conversation, when you're talking for work. And so Smart American Accent Training walks you through systematically the steps to improve and to change your speech for all of the things that you need to have clear communication for. So thank you so much for watching and for subscribing to the channel, for checking out my Facebook page and my website, Speech Modification. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.